he's going to visit South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. That's 356 delegate votes. And he will hit them all in 7 days. Beginning on August 7th, Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, y'all get it started. Savannah, Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, now we're getting into Saturday the 8th. Atlanta, Georgia, Noonan, Georgia, and Midland, Georgia, all will be on Saturday the 8th this weekend. Sunday, Birmingham, and then and even some community near Birmingham. Birmingham gets 2 shots of Ted Cruz on Sunday the 9th, one at Briarwood Presbyterian Church at 11 a.m. Central, then Pelham, Alabama at the Pelham Civic Complex at 2. Huntsville, you will see him 6:30 that day at the Jackson Square. And then on Monday, it's Chattanooga, Murfreesboro, Brentwood, Jackson, Tennessee. And then on Tuesday, Tupelo, Olive Branch, and Memphis, Tennessee. You got Mississippi, then Memphis. And then Wednesday of next week, Little Rock, Russellville, and Van Buren, Arkansas. Then Thursday, Oklahoma City, Bartlesville, I should say, and then Tulsa. So that's the 7 days.
Going to be busy.
That's all the states. The bus will be rolling, and Senator Ted Cruz joins us now. Welcome to the program, Senator. How are you today?
I'm doing terrific. Thank you for having me.
Well, I tell you, we're running down the 7-day bus tour.
Yeah, you got a few stops.
Good gracious.
Well, we're running through the SEC. It's interesting. The southern states this year are going to play a huge role in the Republican primary. They're all early March, right after the first 3 states, and I think that's great because I think collectively the states in the South, we're going to make sure this time Republicans nominate a strong conservative, which I think is the only way we win in November.
Senator, we couldn't agree with you more, and I kind of felt like you were the I'm fed up candidate, and then we had the Trumpster come out. Are you a little shocked at his success, and how do you combat him as a candidate? Do you take him on directly? I mean, I really think you and him agree on a lot of the issues.
Well, we do. I like Donald Trump a lot, and I think the reason he's attracting a lot of attention right now is that he's standing up and speaking out, and in particular, he's focusing on illegal immigration, and I think that's an issue a lot of us are very, very concerned about. A bunch of the other Republican candidates have basically taken a 2x4 to Donald trying to attack him. I think that's only driven his numbers up. My approach has been very different. I've refused to do that, and in fact, I've defended him and praised him. In particular, because when it comes to illegal immigration, this is an issue that I've been leading the fight for a long, long time. So I'm glad that he's talking about it and it's making the media talk about it. That's positive. But when it comes to being in the trenches and actually fighting, a couple of years ago we had the Democrats' Gang of 8 amnesty bill, and I stood up and led the fight, actually side by side with Alabama's Jeff Sessions. We led the fight to defeat the Gang of 8 amnesty bill, and when it comes to sanctuary cities and violent criminals who are here illegally, those are issues that I've been fighting and leading on for north of a decade. So I'm glad we're talking about it. And I think at the end of the day, I feel very good that on the ground we're seeing conservatives unite behind our campaign because people are looking for a proven conservative and a consistent conservative. They want someone who's walked the walk a long time and someone who what they're going to do when they get in office. There's no guessing. There's no mystery because they got a record and you know exactly who they are.
Well, we talked about, Ronald Reagan's comment that we don't need a third party. We just need the two parties to be distinctly different. And for the Republicans to boldly tell the voters why they are different than the Democrats. And I got to tell you, that has not happened, and it desperately needs to.
You are exactly right. I think 2016 is going to be an election like 1980. And I think the way we're going to win is to paint in bold colors, not pale pastels. We got to have a real and meaningful difference. And I got to say, the threats have never been greater. We're bankrupting our kids and grandkids. We're seeing our constitutional rights under assault each and every day, religious liberty, the Second Amendment, the 10th Amendment. And we're seeing America receding from leadership in the world. Radical Islamic terrorism is on the rise all across the globe. Enough is enough. we need a strong American leader who gets us back to the core values, the Judeo-Christian values and constitutional liberty that built this country, and who is an unapologetic, happy warrior for who we are as Americans.
Amen. Senator, I want to tell you, I think one of the biggest assets you have may be your dad. I've seen a couple of his speeches on TV. Man, he's a great speaker, and he fires you up. I mean, what an asset to have him in your corner.
Well, thank you. My dad has been my hero my whole life. I mean, he's seen this firsthand. You know, he was born and grew up in Cuba, and he fought in the Cuban Revolution when he was a teenager, and he was thrown in prison. He was tortured in Cuba by Batista's army, and then in 1957, my dad fled Cuba and came to America, and he was just 18 years old. He had $100 in his underwear. He couldn't speak English. And his very first job, he washed dishes, making 50 cents an hour to pay his way through school, and went on to start a small business. And then today he's a pastor, and he travels the country, speaking all over the country. And I'll tell you, he has a real heart for and mission reaching out to other pastors and urging pastors to stand up and lead, to stop hiding behind the pulpit and speak for biblical values, and urge people of faith to stand up and engage, because if we don't, we're responsible for what's happening to this country. And he has a fire in his belly that he speaks from the heart. And you know, what you just said, I can't tell you how many people across the country say, particularly Republican women, say some version of, Ted, we like you fine. We love your dad.
Talking to Ted Cruz right now, you know, and on that note, I can't imagine his reaction. Maria called the show today, who also fled here from Cuba, and was talking about how offensive it is for illegal immigrants to be catered to when, like your dad, she came here and learned to speak English, got a job, legalized her citizenship, and has made contributions to what is now her new country. I can't imagine his reaction, and we have people who's also fled that we know very well on this deal we've just made with Cuba. These are the kind of deals, Senator, that just perplex those of us that have some logic. You know,
what did we get in the deal?
What did
we miss something?
What are we getting out of any of these deals?
Well, it's all part and parcel of the same thing. You look at Obama's foreign policy to Cuba, or to Russia, or to Iran. In every instance, it's weakness and appeasement. We're giving our enemies everything they want. They're getting stronger. Our friends and allies are getting weaker. This president has abandoned Israel at a level no American president ever has. And it's profoundly dangerous. And you know, you look at Cuba. Just a couple of weeks ago, the daughter of Oswaldo Paya came to America. And Paya was a freedom activist and dissident in Cuba who was killed by the Castro regime. And his daughter was here for the press conference when they were opening the embassy. And the U.S. State Department, John Kerry's State Department, told Ms. Paya, if you ask a question at this press conference, we will throw you out.
Wow.
Now, she expects that kind of treatment in Havana. That's what they do in Havana, because they don't have free speech.
Right.
But what does it say that Barack Obama and John Kerry, at the behest of the Castros, agreed, sure, we'll silence the dissidents so you don't get anyone who disagrees with your views at the press conference?
Well, we seem to see that on a lot of fronts here, where we're being told now what to think, which is, I just don't remember that in American history.
The threats to our liberty are greater now than they have ever been. But I will give you some encouragement, which is that I am incredibly hopeful and optimistic. People are waking up.
Well, I hope so.
As I travel the country, there are millions of people who hadn't been engaged in politics, just like in 1980, the Reagan Revolution. Millions of people who hadn't been engaged in politics. I'll give you one indication of what's happening on the ground. All the campaigns have filed their fundraising reports just a couple of weeks ago. Out of 17 Republican candidates, you know the campaign that has raised the most hard money for the campaign?
Who's that?
That's our campaign.
Yeah.
We've we've raised $14.3 million in just over 3 months. Jeb Bush is in second place with $11.4 million. Now, here's the amazing thing. How did we raise $14.3 million? We had over 175,000 contributions from all 50 states and all 5 territories. The average contribution was $81. People all over the country going to tedcruz.org, contributing online. We have contributors from roughly half of the zip codes in America. 48.1% of the zip codes in America have one or more Cruz campaign contributors who've gone to tedcruz.org and supported the campaign. That is one manifestation of what's happening. It's the only way we can turn our country around.
Amen.
Is if the grassroots, we the people, rise up and say, enough is enough. We want our country back.
Thank you, Senator Ted Cruz, for being with us today. If you're watching the show or listening in the southeastern United States, here comes the bus tour. And it starts this Friday. All the stops are there at tedcruz.org, as we just mentioned. And be sure and get out and let your voice be heard. And, Senator, thanks for taking time to be with us.
Thank you very much. Rick and Bubba, thanks a lot. God bless you.
You too.
Rick and Bubba, Rick and Bubba.